Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of the Fast Break. I am 𝗙𝗵𝗃 Johnson. We are in the off-season, taping this shortly after Memorial Day. And as usual, we like to look forward, but to this week's, we're going to look back first. Believe it or not, this is 𝗕𝗏𝗃 𝗗𝗏 and his staff's 6th NBA draft. Can you believe that? So we thought we'd start this episode with a look back at his first 5 overall drafts. Most scouts will tell you need about 3 to 5 years to analyze drafts, so we can clearly analyze that first draft, 2020. You remember it. First round pick of Patrick Williams, second round pick of 𝗵𝗏 𝗠𝗏, who is no longer in the NBA. I actually remember back then I was working for a different television station. And I remember actually writing a blog potentially comparing 𝗵𝗏 𝗠𝗏 to 𝗍𝗏 𝗍𝗀𝗀. Silly me, but yeah, they played for the same team and overseas, and both were second-round picks, and you were hoping that 𝗕𝗏𝗃 would hit on another second-round pick, but alas, that did not happen to 𝗵𝗏, who I believe is still playing overseas. And as far as Patrick Williams, look, the fact we're entering the 6th year of his career and there's still question marks about his consistency, his ability to stay healthy, a little troublesome. That draft in 2020 is proving to be overall not a great one, so I always have been less hung up on the 4th overall selection for Patrick Williams and more on the fact that he projected to be an ideal 3 and D two-way player, and there are still question marks about his consistency. And should we mention that 𝗵𝗏𝘃 𝗟𝗏 was in that draft and is playing in the conference finals? All right, so overall, 2020, not the best start for this regime. 2021, that first-round pick went to the Orlando Magic in the form of Franz Wagner as part of that 𝗍𝗏𝘀𝗶𝘶 Vucevic trade. Second-round pick, Ayo Dosunmu. I think we can all agree that they hit on that pick. The Illinois product was not expected to be there. Dropped to 38, and the Bulls snatched him up, and he has become a very solid player for the Bulls. Obviously experiencing some injury issues now, but if anybody knows Ayo Dosunmu, he's going to attack rehab and be back ready to go for next season. Let's call 2021 a win. 2022, Bulls only had a first-round pick. It was Dalen Terry. I will say this about Dalen Terry. This is my personal opinion. He actually won me over a little bit last year. I was very skeptical of Dalen Terry, and it's really still hard to project him. He is such a young and raw prospect. I do have scouts ask me all the time, like, what is one NBA thing he does extremely well? And really the only answer to that to this point is plays hard. Now that, believe it or not, is an NBA skill. He did show signs of improvement with his shooting last season. That said, he does not project to be a frontline starter at this point of his career. Again, his development story is not fully written, but he does potentially project to be a solid rotation player. So we're going to give this one an incomplete. I'm still not ready to fully judge Dalen Terry, but I do think he showed some nice progress last season. 2023, the 𝗍𝗏𝘀 Vucevic trade books finally closed with the first-round pick conveying to the Orlando Magic in the form of Jett Howard. And technically not a draft pick. The Bulls did trade for the draft rights to Julian Phillips in the second round. But let's, for the purpose of this exercise, call it a draft pick. And I think we can agree on this. Second-round picks, yes, they might have missed on 𝗵𝗏 𝗠𝗏, but Ayo Dosunmu and Julian Phillips, to me, both project to be solid rotational players wherever they are. Julian Phillips is never going to be probably a frontline starter, but you get a solid rotation piece, two-way potential, improved his shot a lot last season in the second round, is overall a win to me. So let's give a solid, passable grade to the 2023 overall draft selection. And then 2024, Bulls only had a first-round pick. It was Modest Buzelis, and he is the hype and the hope for the future. So there is 𝗕𝗏𝗃 𝗗𝗏𝗃, and his staff's work through these first 5 NBA drafts. Why is this important? Well, we're going to lead into some draft intel for 2025. But as I mentioned many times, with the Bulls reacquiring that first-round pick in the Zach LaVine trade and having all their first-round picks lined up for the future, and 𝗕𝗏𝗃 asking fans for patience, draft picks are going to be the way out of this mess. They need to hit on these draft picks. So that's why it's instructive to look at their history before we look ahead. Now, as far as the 2025 draft, The draft workouts at the Advocate Center are ongoing. There's, in fact, one going on today while we're taping this. Some teams open up these draft workouts to the public or the media. I'm not sorry, not the public, the media. The Bulls have chosen not to under this regime. So, look, draft workouts are one data point. It's not the be-all, end-all, but it is nice to obviously get people into your building, put them through your workouts. You've obviously also interviewed some of these prospects at the Combine. So the draft workout work has begun, and the mock drafts continue to be all over the place for the Chicago Bulls, but there is some common intel emerging from the Combine to now. The first is that Derek Queen's poor athletic testing of the Combine has left open some questions about whether or not he might be a draft night slide. Now, again, this is all speculation. It's way too early. And with the Bulls picking 12th, they are not driving the draft board. You don't know what's going to unfold in front of them. That said, let's project and speculate if Derek Queen falls to 12. Would he be a fit with the Bulls? He's obviously a very skilled player. They do need some front court help. I will tell you this, one thing I've heard consistently about the Bulls is they are very focused on stylistically how whoever they pick in the first round will fit with their new philosophy. They obviously are trying to emulate the Indiana Pacers, get deep, play fast, have two-way players, depth at the wing, depth in the front court. Would Derek Queen fit into that? There are some question marks. This is not, again, nothing is definitive here. And we're obviously even speculating that Derek Queen could fall to 12. There is some, different discussions on that. But one thing to keep in mind is that fit with the Bulls' new offensive style will be crucial to this draft pick. Along those lines, 𝗏𝗏 another name you've heard mocked and linked to the Bulls. He did meet with them at the Combine. Great athlete, possibly the best defensive player in the draft, at least defensive prospect in the draft. There are a lot of questions about his shooting ability. Now, can the Bulls, if he's there at 12, pick him and mold him into a better shooter? They've had a lot of success improving some recent players' shooting performances. That was when Peter Patton was an employee of the team. He no longer is an employee of the team, so they've obviously got to find somebody to, pick up where Peter Patton left off. But 𝗏𝗏 is another name you've heard mocked and linked to the Bulls in some mock drafts. And a consistent theme that I've heard from the scouts I've talked to are question marks about his shooting. So again, you've got to ask yourself, if you're the Bulls, does he fit with the way that we want to play offensively, stylistically moving forward? Here's some new intel. I have heard, we've been speculating that the Bulls have enough guards on their roster, and you'd like to see them maybe use this number 12 pick on a front court player. I've always said most front offices will tell you take the best player available. That is always the best philosophy in the draft. So you get to the draft board, whoever's there lines up on your pick, you take him, right? What I've heard is the Bulls are obviously mindful of the front court need, but they are not hung up on position. They will take the best talent available. And that is why you've seen guys like Jace Richardson potentially mocked to the Bulls. He's obviously a guard out of Michigan State. Father had a great NBA career. And one name you've heard rising, the Real Madrid BYU prospect, Yegor Demin. He's getting a lot of buzz, and he's obviously a guard that really fits with an up-tempo style of play. You've heard actually some people comp him to Josh Giddey with his ability to push pace, see great court vision, positional size. So he's rising in a lot of mock drafts. I mean, is he potentially a fit for the Bulls at number 12? And the reason why this guard thing actually does make some sense, even though we joke about how many guards the Bulls always have on their roster, is think about this. I mean, Javon Carter, assuming he picks up his player option, will be expired after next year. Lonzo Ball is essentially on a one-year deal. He'll be expiring after next year. Dalen Terry, who's actually more of a guard forward, kind of a wing, they face a contract decision on him. So really, the only players that project long-term for the Bulls' future in the backcourt are Josh Giddey. I'm just fully assuming he's going to be re-signing here with the Bulls. Kobe White, who's up for restricted free agency. Restricted free agency this year, unrestricted free agency in 2026. Maybe Kevin Huerter. He's expiring after next year. I can see a fit where he's re-signed long-term. and then 𝗬𝗏𝘠𝗠𝗡, although you might have to face a choice between 𝗬𝗏𝘠𝗡 and Coby White. So the guard picture does thin out after the 25-26 season, and that is when the Bulls project to have ample salary cap space. So you can see the Bulls maybe selecting a guard in this draft and fitting him in with their young core. The overall takeaway here is that the Bulls are not hung up on position. They will draft the best talent available. And when you're picking 12, you don't know what that's going to be, but there's a lot of potential excitement and potential possibilities there. All right, storyline number 3. Who's watching these NBA playoffs as closely as me? I know it's been fantastic basketball, and I've enjoyed every second of it. I always said that first round to me was fantastic. We are in the conference finals now, and what is one theme that is playing out? It's clear. The importance of two-way players and 3-and-D guys is paramount. I mean, these Final Four teams are loaded with them. Every time you look up OKC or Indiana, there seems like there's another wing coming in who can lock down somebody defensively and hit a three-point shot. The Bulls are lacking in both these departments. Buzelis obviously has the best potential here for a 3-and-D guy. 𝗬𝗏𝘠𝗠𝗡 and Lonzo Ball are both two-way players, but for the current roster construction, project to be reserves, and Lonzo Ball may or may not be a long-term fit with Chicago. Kevin Huerter has some potential as a two-way player, but again, his contract's up after next season and really isn't a lead guy. He's more of a complimentary guy. This is where Patrick Williams' inconsistency has really impacted the Bulls' plans from my perspective. I mean, he was drafted as the prototypical 3-and-D guy, but he's just battled injuries and inconsistency to the point where you still have question marks about what you're going to get from him on a nightly basis entering year 6. So if the Bulls want to be the Indiana Pacers, which is, the generous takeaway of what you heard from Arturas Karnisovas post-season press conference, the gap is significant, and they've got to obviously hit on these two-way players, 3-and-D type players, with their draft picks moving forward, with their free agency acquisitions moving forward, with any potential trades that they make moving forward. That's got to be the emphasis, because right now the Bulls are lacking a department that is, to me, critical to playoff success. All right, our last topic for this edition of the Fast Break is going to be none other than our guy, Buzelis. I mean, he, as I mentioned before, represents the hype and the hope for the future. I was actually listening back to some interviews I did with Modest late in the season. Listen to some of these quotes. He said, "I'm not scared of failure, and I'm not really scared of anything." That's one quote. Here's another quote. "I'm always going to be working, getting better. I'm always learning and trying to get better as a player and as a person." And when I asked him about his favorite thing from his rookie season, he said, guarding the best players in the league. Remember that stretch where he guarded like LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Giannis in like a 1-week stretch? It was on the West Coast trip. I actually jokingly asked him in Denver if he was going to be guarding 𝗂𝗏𝗧 Jokic that night, but Jokic didn't play that night. Anyway, the point is, this guy is primed for a huge offseason. He told me his main emphasis is to be getting stronger. Obviously, that will help in his two-way endeavors. You saw the defensive potential that he flashed last season, particularly with his ability to block shots, create havoc from the weak side. That will only get better as he gets stronger, which I fully expect Modest to do. His dad is a physical therapist, little known fact. Now, I know that's not weight training, but he's got all the tricks of the trade that will be headed Modest's way. And this is a guy that is just hungry and eager to get better and improve his standing with the Chicago Bulls. I'm excited to see where he goes this offseason. Still no word definitively on if he'll play Summer League. There's always like the argument for or against. Obviously, he is a frontline starter already after a rookie season. Typically, those guys sit out. I know Modest, he loves to play basketball. He'll probably want to be there. When we get word on that, we will have it for you here on a future edition of the Fast Break. We certainly appreciate you checking out this episode, and we'll be back with you with some more information soon. Thanks for watching.